Major General Oluyede has assumed command as the acting Chief of Army Staff. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, presided over the event at the Defense Headquarters here in Abuja. Arise correspondent Ferdinand Duroha reports.
Leading other dignitaries into the conference room for the ceremony is the Chief of Defense Staff. Conspicuously behind the CDS is physically the tallest in the room, and now the acting Chief of Army Staff, Major General Oluyede. In his opening remarks, the CDS states that it is an unprecedented occurrence to have an acting Chief of Army Staff when there is a substantive Chief of Army Staff who unfortunately is indisposed. He proceeds to read the section of the Armed Forces Act which empowers the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Bola Tinubu, to appoint a service chief.
This is in line with the provisions enshrined in the Armed Forces Act, Cap A20, the laws of the Federation 2004, Part 7, Administration, Government and Command, Section 18, 1 to 4, Appointment of Service Chiefs, etc. Section 19, Powers of Command of Members of Cooperating Services, and Section 22.1, which states as follows. Part 7, Section 18, 1 to 4, Administration, Government and Command, Appointment of Service Chiefs, etc. 1. The President may, after consultation with the Chief of Defense Staff and subject to confirmation by the National Assembly, and appoint such officers in this act referred to as the service chiefs, as he thinks fit, in whom the command of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, as the case may be, and their reserves shall be vested.
According to the CDS, the appointment was made by the President to foster continuity in the fight against insecurity, and that Major General Oluyede will act until the President of the country decides otherwise.
Tauri Biodun Lagbaja went on his leave and went for his medical checkup and had reasons to stay behind to continue to do his medical checkup. It is our prayers that he will get better, fit enough to resume back as the Chief of Army Staff.
The climax of the ceremony is the signing of a takeover note. During his remarks, the acting Chief of Army Staff prayed for the quick recovery of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, and sought the cooperation of all to achieve set targets.
As highlighted by the Presidency in the announcement, my appointment as acting Chief of Army Staff is simply to hold sway while Lieutenant General T. Lagbaja, Medical Chief of Army Staff, is a way to enable him to take sufficient time to get necessary medical attention and recuperate. And that I intend to do with the whole of my heart and loyalty to the Constitution, as well as Mr. President, and by extension to my leader, Lieutenant General T. Lagbaja, that I have been mandated to stand in for.
Next, the acting Chief of Army Staff is expected to resume at the Army headquarters, where he will brief the Army High Command about his immediate task. This will expectedly be the domination of terrains and complete destruction of terrorists in the nation's protracted war against insurgency. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
Well, history being made there. But so what tasks lie ahead for the acting Army Chief? So joining us now is retired Major General Rogers Nicholas, a former theater commander at Operation Lafia Dole, the code name for the Army's operation against Boko Haram. Good to see you, and thanks for your time as always. Now we have something etched in our history. At the moment, we're having an acting chief here. How does it work now that the handover ceremony has just taken place? So what are the first things that we expect to see from him?
Well, General Oluyede is a very well-trained officer with a lot of operational experience. So he will gladly fit into the shoes of Lagbaja to stand in for him for the period. Well, the first thing he should do quickly is to do operational visits the operational commands to be able to gather confidence and gain confidence of the troops and officers on the ground. And then have a brief from the office of the service chief, head of departments in army quarters, so they can give him the real information that he requires. Then thereafter, he has to visit the theaters of operation to be able to see for himself the situation on the ground, and then for him to be able to garner confidence, and then also speak to the soldiers on the field to be able to have confidence in them, and they also have confidence in him that he can lead them better. That is the first step he has to do, to be able to assert himself into the position he finds himself. Now, it's not going to be a very sweet one, but I know he has the capacity to do that. I've operated with him. He's a nice officer. He can deliver. Thereafter, I expect him to review the welfare of the troops, particularly the welfare of the troops in the field, because there are a lot of challenges in the field out there. Then for him to be able to assert himself, he must make some bold changes in what's on the ground by taking the lead for these operations. Then he has to also develop some strategic level of local intelligence gathering, because these operations we are doing requires a lot of local intelligence. So there is need for him to link up with the locals at various levels, the commanders at the local level, the villagers, the hunters, whatever it is, the clerics. So he'll be able to gather enough information to be able to execute the operation.
Right. I mean, it's very good and interesting that you've laid out, an agenda for the new acting Chief of Army Staff. That should make his job a lot easier. But now, this is the first in history where you have an acting Chief of Army Staff, and the CDS, the Chief of Defense Staff, did not fail to point that out. What are your thoughts about that? Because this is away from military tradition.
Well, in the military, for our military, for instance, there is no time for vacuum. There shouldn't be any vacuum, particularly when we have these security challenges all over. So it's a good thing that the President appointed an acting Chief of Army Staff. We also pray that the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Lagbaja, gets well and come back to resume. But for now, that Oluyede has been given the task, we all should support him to achieve success. I know he can do that.
Will he have the full power and complements of his office to have that full control and command of the army?
Yes, because
considering this, background.
Yes, the commander-in-chief have given him that powers. As long as the commander-in-chief appoints you, whether in the acting capacity, he has given you all the powers. And like the CDS read out, all the powers to function as Chief of Army Staff have been given to him. So he must deliver.
It's very important. One of the key things you pointed out is visit to areas of operation. I recall then when you were in Operation Lafayette Dole, at that point in time, even the president then did ask everyone to move. So how impactful is that when you see your chief come to the theater of operation? How very impactful is that?
Leading from the front.
It is very, very impactful. Very, very impactful. When I was a theater commander, I and my GSs were always in the front. And that has a positive impression on the troops. So when you see your service chief, the Chief of Army Staff, coming to your theater area to be with you, to address issues, to talk to you, to give you the morale, and then listen to some of your problems, that it's very, very impactful. That is why it's good for the service chiefs to be in the field. Once in a while, you go see the troops, see what they're doing, listen to them, and then also provide those things that they ask you to do for them. But being physically with them on the field is very, very important. Very, very critical.
Right. Very, very interesting. Let's talk about sustaining professionalism, discipline in the military, and also note that the CDS pointed out the need for synergy among the service, the different services, especially, of course, the service chiefs. How important is it?
Yeah, it's important because, you see, the kind of operation we are having now is basically a joint operation. In some places, combined operation. Because you even have the other security agencies joining us to execute this operation. So it's critical, it's very important that synergy continue to exist, and that coordination and cooperation continue to exist among the services. It's very important. For us to achieve success in all this operation, we need everybody to be on the same page. We all have to defend this country and make sure that things work. So it's not going to be left for the army alone. even the civil component has a role to play, major role to play. Minister of Information, Minister of Justice. I know there are so many people that are detained somewhere in the northeast or other places that has to do with security issues that need to be tried. So you see that the component of governance has to be put in place, that everybody has to play a positive role to make sure that the military succeed.
Well, I'm happy you've also touched on one area of expertise. I recall when you were heading the Department of Military Civil Relations. Now, you spoke about welfare.
Yes.
Let's go back to welfare, because you said he should also listen to the troops and, talk about how to improve their welfare.
Well, unfortunately, most Nigerians don't even know how these soldiers operate and how they feel. At times, you have these soldiers operating 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers away from where there are human beings. They are just there in the bush alone, cooking for themselves, taking care of themselves, repairing their vehicles and things like that. So there are challenges. You must look at these people when there are issues, when the soldier is injured. How do you evacuate him? It's a welfare program. If you are evacuating him, where are you taking him to? Is it to the reference hospital, or you're living at a general hospital somewhere? So how about the family? Critical, because somebody is operating in the northeast, has been there for 2-3 years. Then his family is in somewhere, maybe the family is in Sokoto or in Bayelsa. You can imagine that kind of thing. He has no contact with his family. So there has to be that relationship between the military and the family on behalf of the man that is in the forefront. So, and providing him all the things that he requires to make him comfortable, and also giving him leave at times to come and see his family and then return back to the front. It's very important.
PTSD, speak to us about that.
Stress
How good are we with that?
Well, I can say that the government is trying, the military is trying, but it's not enough. We have a lot of challenges of that incident. People that have been in the operational area for 2-3 years, and then seeing various terrible situations, and then coming across so many things, and then you really need to manage such a person very, very well. So I think we can improve on what we're doing now, while the military is doing well, as based on resources available to them, but we can do better. But we also need to collaborate with other foreign partners to help us to do this. But one thing I want to point out, for Chief Army Staff, is to see how he can reduce the number of roadblocks in the southeast and south, where we have so many soldiers just manning roadblocks that are not operationally important, where we can absorb some of these soldiers and take them to where we really need them. You understand? So many roadblocks in the southeast, middle belt, and the south side, doing nothing. Soldiers are just doing nothing, just they are doing some unprofessional conduct. So there's need for him to look at this and see how you can also remove this. Finally, for me, I think the military should try and sit down and talk to our political master how to resolve some of the issues that's happening, particularly the ones in Rivers State and the issue of Nnamdi Kanu, to be able to resolve this so that the crisis can be reduced, so that the military can have less to contend with.
Thank you so much. I mean, the CDS even said that the soldiers on the field are actually performing a lot of magic. But that's all the time we can take on this conversation. Major General Rogers Nicholas, retired, former theatre commander, Operation Lafia Dole. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.